Yeah. Hello, everyone. Whoa. That's loud. Alrighty. Welcome to Chihuly Garden Glass. We're going to show you how to make a lovely little vessel, kind of like this one up here. But first things first, just don't pass the safety rope up in front. And if anything falls off the stage, don't touch it. It's going to be very hot and sharp. Doesn't really happen here. I'm not worried about it. But if it does, then I'll take care of it. Sweet. On to the team. This is Alton. He's going to be our gaffer today. Let's give him a warm welcome. So the gaffer is just the lead glassblower designing piece. My name's Ash. I'll be narrating and assisting. So let's get started. Woo! Okay. So Alton has a preheated blowpipe in his hands. And he has to preheat the end of it so the glass sticks to the steel. But that is hollow all the way through, just like a big straw. And he's gathering a little bit of molten clear glass out of our melting furnace. So that is clear glass, but it's glowing orange because it's about 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit or 1,200 Celsius. So that's hotter than lava right now. And he needs to get a little bit more over top of that right now as well, because that's not quite enough for us to make something, or to do what we need to do. So he's waiting for that to cool down, and we always have to layer the clear glass up to the scale that we want to work at, because it is moving pretty quick, kind of like honey. So he's gathering and turning it just like honey on a dip. But as it starts to cool down, it starts to stiffen up as well. So he might show you in a second. I mean, it's pretty hot right now. But if he stops turning the pipe, that will easily drip onto the stage and make a big puddle. But that's a different demo also. So Alton is going to shape it up with this tool called a wood block, like a fancy wooden spoon soaked in water, because at this temperature, that instantly turns into steam and forms a little thin barrier of steam in between the glass and the wood. So it's not directly touching the wood right now, and as long as we keep it wet. So those wood blocks, even though it is wood touching like over 2,000 degrees, it's going to last us about a year if we take care of it. Yeah. But he's also cooling that down as well as shaping it for this part. Watch the glass. He's going to puff some air into the blowpipe, trap it with his thumb, and in 3, 2, 1.
Oh, wow.
Just like that. Everybody see that okay? Everybody saw that? Okay, well thanks for coming, everybody. I'm just kidding. So this is not enough glass to make what we want to make today. If we tried blowing it up this big, it would stretch way too thin. And the thinner the glass gets, the faster it heats up and cools down. So we have to make sure not to blow it out too thin if we want to meaningfully shape it. So right now he's just cooling it down as much as he can. So he's going to be able to get glass over that without having to worry about missshaping the bubble. So he wants to make a nice symmetrical piece, so he needs to keep that bubble nice and symmetrical. So glue that up a little bit. And whenever he touches a tool to the glass, it's cooling it down faster than just the air alone will. But whenever we're not heating it up, it's always cooling down very quickly due to the temperature difference between the glass and the air outside. So he's using our steel, and that steel is going to cool it down much faster than any other material of our tools up here on stage. So just waiting, hanging out with it, getting to know the glass a little bit. That's what my old manager would always say. It's like, you gotta hang out with it, become its friend. Yeah, I know. So you can hear how stiff that was. So that's still about 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit or 520 Celsius. That's gonna be as cold as we're ever gonna let that get as well. So that is cold for us because it's not moving. But if it gets too far below that temperature and then we try to heat it up, it will actually shatter into a bunch of pieces. And that's called thermal shock. So that's just rapid, uneven temperature change that causes a lot of stress in this kind of glass. So we're always working between two temperatures, 1,000 and 2,200 degrees. So now he's rolling through our colors. So we have two piles laid out up there of what we call frit, F-R-I-T. That is crushed up colored glass that's going to melt right into the surface of that molten clear bubble. So he needs the surface to be hot enough in order to melt those little bits of glass into the surface. And the way different colors get added to glass in the first place is with different metal oxides. So depending on the metal oxide that you add to the clear glass, and depending on how much you add and how oxidized it is, that changes the color pretty significantly. So he rolled through a nice orange and red frit first, and then he melted that in and rolled through a nice bright blue or turquoise frit. So a lot of reds, oranges, and yellows are either made with cadmium or selenium. And sometimes red, pink, and purple can actually be made from gold oxide. So depending on the colors that you get, the price changes quite a bit. So he's gonna melt that in. Is that all the frit? Nice, so that's all the frit that we need for this piece. So when he sits back down at the bench, he's gonna roll through a bigger wood block. So we have different size tools for different amounts of glass. So that's gonna be a good size for what we're making right now. This would be for a slightly bigger piece, like if you want to make something like 3 feet tall or so, we would be using this guy. And the same thing goes for all the pieces in the exhibit as well. So all of those had to have much bigger tools for the big scale that they're trying to work on. So those macchia bowls had a much bigger wood block as well. Some get as big, get so big that you could actually lay down in it if you want, like curl up and do a little ball inside of it. But Alton is just gonna even that shape out and start setting up the design that he has in his head. So since it's getting a little darker out, you can actually see the temperatures actively change in real time. You're gonna see it start to darken and lose that glow over time, and also show through the color a little bit. So whenever you see him hang the pipe down at an angle, he's trying to stretch it out a little bit like taffy, get a little bit more height on his piece. So this is our orientation right now, with the bottom of the piece being blown out from the tip of that bubble. So he's trying to thicken the bottom up right now and cool it down on this big steel table called a marver. So when he blows through it right now, it doesn't lose that thickness. So he's going back over there. It's getting a little too cold to shape. But now as the assistant, I get to help out a little bit more. I can start blowing into the vessel for Alton while he shapes it with his various tools. So glass blowing is mostly a team-oriented art form because especially as you start scaling up, you need more and more people to help you out in different ways. So like Alton only has 2 hands, so certain techniques would actually be a lot harder for him to do. Like if you wanted to do one of those lip wraps over there, that thin band of color around the top, that's a separate piece of glass, and you really want someone helping you out for something like that. Now I'm blowing into the vessel only when he tells me to, because once it's blown out, it's permanently that thin. We can't re-thicken it during the process. And a lot of shaping just happened. He's using those jacks, squeezing the glass right there, and that's gonna act as the top of our vessel. So that's the lip, and he's defining that right now. But we're also gonna use that as a perforation later to break it off of this pipe right where we want it to break, instead of destroying the piece. You might have also seen this fancy little tool. This is a shaping pad specialty tool called the Seattle Times newspaper. That's all it is. You can still kind of read it too, because this one's nice and new. It's about 8 sheets of folded up newspaper soaked in water, and that allows him to shape it a lot more like clay. So you saw him put that nice curve in the center of it, stretch out that neck a little bit. So now, because it's a nice tall piece, he's actually going to section his heat off only where he wants it to move. And actively using gravity right now to actually flatten that bottom bit out. So only the hot glass wants to really move. So when he pointed the pipe up, it squatted that glass pretty significantly. Now when it's super hot right out of the furnace, you say, oh, what? Blowing harder. There we go. As it starts to cool down, you have to blow harder and harder to get the same amount of movement. So Alton wanted a little bit more pressure there. But now, he's going to keep shaping the sides and the bottom until he says it's where he wants it. And then the last thing you're going to do when he's shaping the bottom is flatten it out into a nice flat foot so it can stand up just like those pieces over there. So he's going to keep going, shaping this up, making that bottom nice and squatted up there. And all the techniques that you see up here are the same ones that were used to make all of the pieces in the exhibit, just on a much smaller scale. So while Alton could make a piece of this scale on his own, again, he would be kind of limited in terms of techniques. Everything in the exhibit was made with between 5 to 16 people on a scale. So, one more of those? Okay. So he's going to finish that up. He needs to make sure it's exactly where he wants it before we break it off this pipe. Because after that, we can't really do anything to change it. So again, sectioning that heat off. The less he wants to move the glass, the colder he'll keep it, because that actually gives him more control. So if he wants to move it a lot, then he'll get that nice and red hot. Blowing a little bit. Okay. Tapping. I'm trapping the air inside the piece, effectively giving him something to press against. And then now he says it's good. So the bottom is finished, and we get to move on to the next step. It's called the puntee transfer. So I have a solid steel rod. This is the puntee. I'm going to gather a little bit of glass here. What we have to do is stick this to the bottom of Alton's piece so we can break it off of his pipe and onto this one. Now, if our heats are, like, if either end's too hot, you won't notice until later, but it will break a hole in the bottom and turn it into a planter. And if it's too cold, you'll notice right away because it will fall on the ground, and that will end the demo a little early. So we're going to try and line this up. I'm going to get a little bit more heat. And Alton can call me over when he's ready. Okay, now this. And if this next part goes well, feel free to give it up for Alton, because this takes a lot of practice. And the way we practice in glass is by breaking it until we don't. So he's gonna just line it up as on center as he can get it. And when he's ready, he'll crack that jack line from earlier with a drop of water. When the glass is cold enough, that water touches the glass. Yeah. And removes a lot more heat and thermally shocks it. So right there, and hold your breath. Hey, there we go. Woo. Yeah, that works every single time we do it.
No,
Just kidding, of course. That is the hardest part for a reason. One of the main things that we have to worry about is it getting too cold out here and then us going into that heat and it shattering. Because you can see and hear like how cold that is. His tool is scraping against that glass. So that's why I ran it right over to the heat just to get it back up to temperature. So he's trying to center it up as best he can now. That's his last chance to do so. And that's going to help us out with symmetry. So the less on center it is, the less symmetrical it's going to be. So now we flipped it around. Have a little hole right at the end where he's heating that up. And that's how we're going to access that inside bubble to open it up just like those ones. So you can go on the inside with the jack blades, apply a little upwards pressure and change the angle of his wrist. And that's going to flare it out to whatever angle that he wants. Now you might have noticed that when we break it off cold, it's really sharp and uneven up there. So he's going to pull it out nice and thin, get a little bit more height, and then only if he has enough heat can he cut through hot glass. So he's going to trim that off to make it nice and symmetrical. So like if we didn't do a trim, then the top, like this lip edge would be like really bumpy and uneven, and it also wouldn't really look that proportional. It would be kind of thick and chunky. So he's sectioning that off, occasionally going back in for a full heat, just to make sure that that back end doesn't get too cold. And then as the assistant, I can pretty much just help with this dry wooden pattern. So like I can block his hand from a radiant heat or any bits of glass that might tag him. So it pulls that out nice and thin, just like that. And go straight for the cut. And that little tail is why he needed enough heat to get all the way through in one go.
Wow.
And he made that look super easy. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I mean, he made that look super easy that takes a lot of practice, just because if you turn too fast, you're going to wrinkle all that glass. And if you turn too slow, it's going to fold on itself. And you can't really fix either of those things. So, now he can section his heat off right where he wants it to taper, wherever the neck is thinnest, just like that. That's pretty much as deep as he's going to heat that up. And then how much he heats it up also depends on how much he wants to shape it. So if he just wants like a little narrow flare right at the top, he's not going to heat it up so much. But if he wants it really wide, he'll get that real hot. So I can also use this dry wooden paddle to actually even out the lip in the future if he needs that. Or are you going to use a different tool? He is going to use a different tool. This is called a Soffietto or a puffer. On the shoulder right there. Blew it up a little bit, so he wanted that really wide. And the Soffietto is the only way to blow it up when it's not on a blow pressure. So this did a lot more work all at once than the jack blades could, because this is so much more steel that's going to cool down the glass. So you really don't want to do all of that work with it. But he is going to need them on this next bit, so I'm heating them up to give him a little bit more working time, and then I'm applying beeswax to the blades. So I actually use beeswax as a lubricant for this tool, so it doesn't stick or scratch the glass as he shapes with it. But if you see a fire, that's all it is. It's not going to hurt the glass at all. Hopefully. There it goes on the inside, just like that. See some of that fire there. Sometimes I like adding a little bit more than we need. Because it looks really cool. Yeah, especially at night. Wow. Yep, paddling. Okay. And there we have it, everybody. A beautiful piece by Alton. Woo. Okay. So, we have one last very crucial step. We have to load it into this big oven back here. This is called an annealer oven. Now that runs at about 950 Fahrenheit or 512 Celsius and is the perfect holding temperature where it's not going to crack and it's not going to keep moving. At least if we set it right. So, Alton's going to take this last heat to do any final touch-ups. And it's going to go in there, or he's going to knock it off in there, and then we're going to torch it a little bit and load it. But after the last piece, this piece, or the next piece at 7:30 is done, we're actually going to turn a program on that will cool it down for 10 more hours. So that slow cooling is going to actually release all that thermal stress without breaking the piece. So a little bit of water, just like before, cracks it right there. And tap comes right off, just like that. And now, he needs to use this very hot torch. It's called a hot torch. And that melts at about 3,000 to 4,000 Fahrenheit, or about 2,000 Celsius. Makes quick work of that, and gets it hot enough for him to stamp it, just like that. And there we have it, everybody. Beautiful piece by Alton. Yeah. Okay, let's give it up for one more time. Okay. So, one last thing before you go. All of these pieces, when they're finished, they actually get sold at the Space Needles gift shop. Just ground floor, free to enter for about $80. You can get one of these, and all the proceeds go back into our local arts community as well. So please check that out. Yeah, great cause. If you have any other questions, please stick around and ask us. Otherwise, have a lovely night in Seattle.
Thank you.